change post-COVID. I don't know whether you should be saying regulations, over-regulations. The industry has seen a different shape and turn over the last couple of years. What we've seen is in the current year also we have seen some pressure since the start of the year. The industry has posted a lower single-digit decline, but with anticipation of a cut in GST rate, there is some positivity which is around, and the good part is it is going to happen before festive. So there may be many other nuances which may impact FADA differently, which we'll talk to Amar and get some sense. But diving straight into the session, I would firstly welcome a warm welcome to all the panelists, Shashank San, Arun sir, Mr. Puneet Gupta, Prashant sir, and Amar. Shashank San, I'll start with you. Maruti Suzuki has been the largest manufacturer of passenger vehicles for more than 2 decades now. In fact, ever since I have been tracking this industry, and you've always been the first one to read trends, react, or preempt trends. If I have to put it, react is a wrong word, and kind of define the way in which the industry shapes up going forward. What we've also seen is in the last couple of years, you've created various segments, right from subcompact to premium compact, compact SUVs, so on and so forth. Dzire again, a subcompact sedan, which was something which Maruti brought out. Now, when you look at the current scenario of the industry, as I spoke about in my presentation also, you've seen that, the product mix has changed drastically in the last 5 to 6 years, which was not the case, till financial year 19. But, there has been a significant change post that. And even now, if you see, there is a lot of stickiness that we see on the small car side, even in the market today. It's just that, the price differential has gone up significantly and incomes have not paired up in that regards. Is the reading that, people in general have, and as an analyst, I do believe. So, would like to hear from you, how are you seeing this, scenario shape up? What is your view? How is the product mix expected to shape up, kind of going forward? And do you see that, we are talking about reaching an income level of $4,500 per capita, over the next 5 years. But still, the pyramid structure of the the demographics that we have will still stay, and there will be a lot of people who will be there in the mid to upper bracket, which may still want to look at options which are in the sub 4 meter category, if I have to say specifically. So your views on that.
Yeah, thank you for that question, and also all the observations, very, very relevant, and I saw your presentation. It's really comprehensive and very good. On this point of household pyramid structure that you call, and if you compare it with China, if China, in 2005 was at a similar GDP per capita level as India is today, right, which is about $2,500, $2,600. And coincidentally, the volume in China in 2005 was exactly the same, yes, which is 4.3 million. There seems to be some great correlation between GDP per capita and also the volumes, and hence the growth in the industry. By the way, in China, the correlation is about 0.89, but in India, it is about 0.96. So it is even more possible, if we could predict the GDP per capita in India, to have a much... the inverted pyramid structure, if you look at China, China has 65% people in the affluent plus category. In India, it is just about 9 or 7% and 1%. Yes. So out of the 333 million households that India has today, we have about 128 million households in that category. Expected to go up in 2030 to about 158 million, and that is where most of, so our structure of households will still be the normal pyramid, unlike the inverted pyramid of China, but it's going to get bulkier in the middle. which means there is a very good possibility that we will have great growth going ahead. And therefore, the projections that you did about 5.2 to 5.7 million, if I remember correctly
Yes, sir.
from your
Yes.
presentation, I think probably broadly sort of think, barring some black swan events like a COVID or some war or some geopolitical situation, we really don't know. On the structural part of these the small car versus SUVs, etc. Yes, you are right. We have seen a huge change, and it impacts different companies differently. Surely, it impacts Maruti Suzuki more because our market share in small cars is 70%. And in fact, a lot of you who might wonder, Maruti Suzuki losing market share at one point at time about 50%, which was in 2019, to about 40 now. We have increased market share in every segment except the SUV, because where the market share is less, and hence that loss. So I think if you look at global trends, different areas, Latin America, China, Europe, Brazil, and Poland, and all those similar Mexico type of countries, we can see some sort of a shift to SUVs globally, and and there are different reasons why that happens. I think in terms of small cars, the affordability factor is very important, and that is where I think we are looking at when we see how the affordability, the rate at which the income levels have grown in that category has been actually less than the prices which have gone up. Just for the information of everybody here, the prices of small cars have gone up almost 65 to 70% in the last 5 years. And in fact, in the average price in the industry also, now about 12.5 lakhs. It was about 765 5 years back. This has also gone up hugely. So income levels have also gone up as the GDP growth suggested, but they haven't gone up uniformly. It just seems to have affected the entry level much more, and we can see that in the jump in the used car market also. So I think we would, once we have this clarity on affordability, we would have a clarity of which direction the movement is. Sedans, for example, have come down from 24-25% at one point of time in 2015 to less than 8% now, or almost 8%. This year a little bit up, but that's how it is. So I think this trend is, we'll have to wait and watch and see how the affordability factor works out. And I think going forward, it's a good, signs are good for the Indian auto industry. And I do hope that, as a growing country, our penetration of cars, which you showed at 28, 29, will go up substantially. Certainly the number of households are going up, and also the household incomes are going up because the participation of women in labor is going up. If you see China at 48%, we are only at 27%. So I think that is all positives going forward for the Indian industry.
Very, very important. And as you rightly said, sir, we are also seeing scooterization improving because of that, because more and more women are now actively participating in the workforce, and that is also reflective in the sales of scooters, which is happening. Thanks for your input, sir. I'll come to Puneet, as Shashank sir mentioned, we'll see affordability is something, which is going to drive growth for the small car category. You came in with Creta, the mid-size SUV, and, it's ruled the roost for almost close to last 5 to 6 years. And what we've also seen is not only in urban centers, but down even on the rural side, we've seen, the subcompact SUV, the mid SUV do really well. And then you also came up with Venue later, which also was, is doing very well. So you've also been in India, largely coming in with Santro, then, you bet heavily on i10, i20, and reading trends, you also got into the, in the mid SUV space and then the compact SUV space. How are you seeing this industry shaping? How are your views? Are your views very similar to what Shashank Sir is saying, or you are seeing some kind of differential in growth? Even he mentioned that SUVs is a trend which is happening globally and which is being visible in many countries, and that is something that has picked up pace. But the pace at which it has happened in India over the last 4 to 5 years, more so attributable to affordability also, is something which will continue, or we will see a blip somewhere in between?
First of all, good morning, everyone. And I think it's a very, very apt time to have this, conference. Today we are all in 2nd of September, and rightly the GST Fitment Committee is happening in Delhi, and subsequently the GST Council will happen tomorrow and day after. And I think it will largely shape the future of the auto industry going forward. I definitely and 100% agree with which Mr. Shashank San has said, but also add some of the statistics, over the last 10 years. We all know that on 21st July 2015, the Creta was launched. And I take you back 10 years, how the industry was there. When we talk of the compact cars, or the hatchbacks as we popularly call them, India had around 50% contribution of the hatchbacks way back in 2015. 10 years later, 2025, last financial year, this contribution has come down to 23%. Although if I look at the first half of the ongoing financial year, it is already at around 21%. Now last year we had around 4.3 million cars, but a sizable for 21% itself means around 1 million hatchbacks. Now that's a very big size. Probably it is more than the combined manufacturing capabilities of some of the OEMs in India. So 1 million is a volume which we just can't neglect.
Absolutely.
And looking forward to the current GST regime changes which will happen, I am sure this segment will continue to flourish and will be very potential segment which serious OEMs cannot neglect. I mean including Hyundai and Maruti for that matter. But also I'll tell you what is the structural change which is there. And that structural change is basically the differentiation as to the price brackets are concerned. Now today when we look at the starting price of a hatchback, on an average we're talking of around 6 to 8 lakh kind of a price bracket. What has happened over the last couple of years is that the OEMs have also introduced SUV type bodies in that similar price segment. So what has happened, products like the Exter or the Venue or the Brezza, Punch, Nexon have actually started taking the shape or taking the pie from these hatchbacks. In fact, when we look at the first time buyers, and I'll give you some numbers, especially from the Hyundai perspective. In 2020, our first time buyers were close to around 32%. It has actually grown to 40% as of now. Specifically when we talk of small segments like the Venue, in 2020, it was close to 30%. It has actually gone up to 45%. Even Exter at this moment, which is our compact SUV like, car, the first time buyer itself is around 46%. Even in terms of Creta, which was around 13% in 2020, the first time buyer is as high as 32%. So what has happened is that people who were actually wanting to purchase a price segment of around 6 to 8 lakh rupees have actually moved to the SUV space, because SUV gives you a little more robust feeling, it gives you higher ground clearance, and it is the flavor of the century going forward. But having said all these things, I think there is still a time. The new GST slabs will definitely put a lot of fillip into this kind of a 21% segment which currently I'm talking about, and it will definitely continue to remain as one of the mainstays as far as the Indian passenger vehicle is there. So yes, we will definitely see more and more adoption of SUVs and premiumization, but we cannot neglect the importance and the contribution of the hatchback. Therefore, serious OEMs will continue to invest into new technologies, into new powertrains, into new features, and ensure that customers get a product which is not only premium but at the same time affordable, because that's what is going to define the future growth of the industry. Currently from say around 4 million, we are talking of around 7 to 8 million by 2035. Should be a good, kind of a jump looking at the way China has improved. So that's my take as far as the small car segment is concerned.
Thanks, Puneet sir. Taking cue from, what you spoke about, alternate powertrains, if you actually look at the last couple of years, we've seen CNG, grow significantly from about 7-8% to almost closer to 20% today. It's almost at about 19%. And of course, supply has also increased significantly. You see more than 7,500 CNG pumps across the country today. And what is also very important is earlier CNG was largely only in the base variant. Now we see CNG even in the mid and top trims. and that has made a lot of people wanting to go for CNG. Now, apart from this, hybridization is happening. Of course, there are fewer models on the hybrid side, but electrification is also picking up pace. There are many new models which have come in the last 6 to 8 months, if I say so. Earlier it was largely Tata driving it, along with, Windsor to a certain extent, and most of the others were largely either imported or some units, which BYD used to sell in India. But if you see, legacy OEMs like yourself have also got into this space, in the last couple of years. So when we look at this powertrain mix, how do you see this shaping up? Arun sir, if I have to take your perspective, if you've been, a veteran in the industry for last, kind of almost 3 decades now, you've seen the industry change from, a dominant petrol come diesel, wherein the diesel share has stagnated. Petrol share at one point of time was going very high. Deregulation happened, diesel stabilized, petrol stabilized, petrol started to go down, CNG went up, and now EVs and hybrids also coming in. So how are you seeing this dynamics play out, and what is your take on, how the industry will be shaped up, the next couple of years?
Thank you, Himal. Very insightful views both by Shashank and Puneet. But I have just one difference. What we call small car today below 4 meter is not the small car, because at 4 meter you also sell cars at 13 lakhs. The actual small car is between 8.3, 0.6 meter, and that can make the market grow. Unfortunately, the price, as Shashank mentioned or Puneet mentioned, gone up by 70%. So unless there's some serious work on that, and if I take 2 data points, a model, and it's a very popular model, Alto, which was 20 years number 1 model, is now doesn't figure in the top 20 even. So clearly, if the market has to expand, it has to hit the base level. And I think that is a challenge, and it is just not the 4 meter. So probably you have to say small car, or the small car definition has to be there. Otherwise the market will not grow beyond that pace. Now coming to the fuel things, I mean, the challenge today in the fuel thing is that across each product category, the fuels can differ. I mean, we are talking of passenger 4-wheelers, and you talked of CNG. So clearly CNG has taken that sweet spot of low operating and maintenance cost with the price. So might be it's a small car, it's taking that particular share, and Maruti has been driving it 30% of its volume coming into it. And I call it the Ajay Devgan of auto industry, because it was never discussed much. I mean, everybody is going Gaga or EV hybrid, but CNG is the real winner of the game.
Absolutely.
Now, clearly, technologies will also take a point. I mean, EV is rising. How much is the government taxation structure? How does it favor? Today, there's a strong favor on EV. In spite of all that, the contribution is hardly 4%. Now, suppose the government takes some move on hybrid, you never know. Then this can dramatically shift.
Right.
So this interplay will be a very big challenging point, and how it will go. But I still believe petrol and diesel will contribute a large part. Now coming to other segments which we don't discuss, take commercial vehicles. Hardly there is any EVs operating from that side.
Right.
Take earth moving equipment. So clearly there has to be horses for courses, and you look at each segment. 2-wheelers, scooters, yes, great, 20% share. But motorcycles, no share. So clearly there will be challenges, and I think the powertrain technology will depend a lot on 2-3 things. One is government policy. Other is how much aspiration you build into products. Whatever EV has succeeded, you have built up aspirations. And also how fast the technology move in a direction in terms of owning, maintaining, like what's happened hybrid. So it's a new dawn, it's a misty dawn, but it's interesting times. But I can only say clearly petrol and diesel are there to stay, and hybrid, EV and CNG. CNG clearly is there, will vary as per the developments in the market, whether in terms of customer, whether in terms of government policy. That's the way I look at it.
Very interesting. You brought in that point that, the government policy is going to be very, very important in shaping up the industry, kind of going forward. Of course, GST is one step that they are taking, in a direction wherein they would want to bring back the mojo in the industry, if I have to put it that way. And a very, very pertinent point that you put out, 3.6 meter Alto being taxed at a very similar rate to that of a 4 meter. is possibly, one may want to relook at it, because if I also, kind of now see in hindsight, that segment used to contribute to about 60-65% of the overall, compact car sales at one point of time, is now down to 10%. And 90% is something, which is closer to 4 meter or 3.9 meter plus. Okay, and if you look at other economies like say Japan, which is also promoted K car in a very big way, so it also helps you improve, the vehicle penetration, bring in volumes as you rightly said, but also addresses other concerns like congestion, so on and so forth, in the economy. So, worth looking at. It's a very valid and a pertinent point. Moving on to, Amar, after looking at what the OEMs have said, if you actually look at the implications of GST on the dealership side, what is it that, is the first thought that comes to your mind? Because, I've been speaking to a lot of them who tell us that, मेरा 28% GST plus cess वाला stock पड़ा है, उसका क्या होगा? Kind of people are really worried. So how are you looking at this situation? Of course, I'm sure intuitively you will also not, disagree that with the reduction in GST, there is going to be a definite positive flip to demand. And I know that FADA has also been propagating that, GST on small cars, on two-wheelers has to be reduced. And, we are actually seeing some momentum getting built on that front, and, some announcements which may come in soon. But you guys also have stocks, which are at the existing GST rate. So how will that situation work out? What is it that's going on behind in your minds?
Thanks, Emma. So I think this is a black box currently as to what is going to happen on 3rd and 4th and when will it be implemented is the bigger question. I think the government also realized that they need to act very quickly on this. Not only is it affecting auto retail, but it is affecting a lot of industries into retail where customers have put on hold their current purchase decision. And for auto especially, being the festive season, which already in Western India with Ganpati or in South India with Onam, it was a very prime season for all of us. We had stocked up looking at demand coming in, which had all the indicators that it would. But I think I must compliment the government that they worked proactively to prepone the GOM meeting also and now the GST Council meeting also. So I'm sure they will have to follow their process, what is laid down, and only then agree to whatever they agree to, if they agree to. So let's wait and watch what happens. I think none of us here are qualified enough or are in the know to comment on what way it will go. But of course, all of us are anticipating a rate cut, and we are really hopeful that a rate cut would come in. You rightly mentioned in your earlier presentation that there will be a demand spurt that will come, which had happened when the excise dropped also. So we are looking at a similar thing happening. Unfortunately, I think the automobile is still looked at as a luxury or a sin good, which is in the category of a cigarette and alcohol. So it becomes naturally the most taxed thing that there is, with the cess also on top of it in the current situation. I hope that wiser counsel prevails and the automobile gets treated as a necessity and it comes into a tax slab of the 18%, which would give great impetus to it. From a dealer point of view, where currently I am representing FADA, which is a dealer association, auto dealership comes under all the tax slabs, right? We have a 0% also, we have 5% also, we have 12%, we have 18%, 28%, plus 28 and onwards at all the cess, because we sell EVs, we sell insurance, we render services, we sell spare parts, we sell automobiles. So a dealership currently is exposed to all the GST tax slabs that there are, and of course its complications. Yes, the dealer fraternity currently is worried, coming to your question on what will happen to its existing stock. So there have been manufacturers which have taken a very bold step and restricted or cautioned the dealers against wholesale in the last month, which I think the more on the SUV segment or more on the other segments wherein there is a high cess component. Because what would happen to the cess is not yet known. Right? GST sitting in my books today, my stock might give me an opportunity to set off the input against whatever output. Fine, it might take longer if the tax rate changes, but it will finally be set off. But a cess cannot be set off against an IGST or anything like that. So the cess would still sit in my books. For that, what would happen, how it would be set off, I hope in tomorrow's meeting they would have some sort of clarity on it. But in my mind, that is the most important question, that how will the cess sitting in the dealer's books be set off? Because if they withdraw the cess totally, then what happens? If there is some other tax coming in, will that be set off against this or not? It is a question mark. That
Interesting. So too many, kind of, yeah, and too many questions unanswered at this point of time. Okay, now moving on to Mr. Prashant. Sorry, I've come pretty late to you, but what I want to understand is, you are one of the, kind of companies which comes into being once the vehicle is sold, and then, kind of the owner has an option to go to a dealership, or he could come to a center like yourself, for, kind of servicing their vehicles, preventive maintenance to a certain extent, and also, kind of spare parts. So how have you seen, your business shape up? Because in the last 4 or 5 years, what we've seen is pre-owned sales have also gone up significantly, which is one major driver growth for you. Because generally what we've seen is in the first 4 years or 5 years, the buyer would generally go to the authorized dealership. He would want to service his vehicle there because, initial years are free, kind of service, and then, there is a warranty on the vehicle wherein he takes an extended warranty, 2 years or 3 years, taking it totally to about 5 years. And after that, he would typically come to a independent, I would say, setup wherein he services his vehicles. Have you seen an upsurge in terms of volumes post-COVID? Because, we've seen holding periods go up, or is it very similar to what it was earlier?
Hi, good morning. And if you consider the case of COVID, where vehicles were not serviced or were not coming to the workshop because of a lot of restrictions we had, but there is not much of the change. Initially, yeah, because we got stuck up into the service and all other things, so people have started coming to the workshops, getting the vehicle serviced. But now the routine is same. Whatever being sold, almost all those vehicles are being getting serviced. And I will say that nowadays, because most of the people would be there for more of years in this industry, and therefore last 40 years, I see now people or the customers, they are becoming more cautious about the repairs and periodic maintenance of their vehicle, which is a good part. Because earlier it was happening, why to maintain the vehicle, why to go for servicing, why to go for the periodical maintenance. The reason behind that is these people, those who are producing a very good vehicle, because we have seen the quality of old vehicles where in a year or 2 years you have to go for an engine or gearbox repairs, which is not happening. Now, you take any manufacturer across the world or in India, the quality of vehicle or the product has gone to the 80% very, very good. I don't think any of you are visiting or taking your vehicle for major repairs in a workshop. So it's only periodic maintenance which is being taken care and which has to be taken care by everyone. So in the industry, repair industry, as we are thinking, whether it comes with the EV or whether it comes with, it's like a doctor. Doctor is not going to die at all. We are there because these people are the producing it, but we are taking care for the future. At least we can say for next 15 years, the service industry is taking care of the products, which ultimately get the benefit to the manufacturer. Because if the maintenance cost is less, If the vehicle is doing a good performance, if it is giving a good performance to you, if it is saving your time, it is saving your money, it ultimately gives the benefit to the manufacturer. So even we work on both the sides, the service industry from manufacturer side also, and the service industry. There are automobile service providers in the market also, those who are doing good. There are certain brands which are working. But I'm being into this industry, I have seen, I work as a business development consultant for many of the Maruti, Hyundai dealers. What I've seen is that after free servicing, the visiting to the dealership has gone down drastically. It goes down by 50%. 50% vehicles are reporting to there could be n number of reasons which great people are here, they are going to take care of that. But 50% of vehicles which are going out, and if the care is not being taken by the local service providers, ultimately the name, अरे वो गाड़ी ठीक नहीं करता है यार, वो गाड़ी सही नहीं है, वहाँ पे होती नहीं है. So the brand name goes bad. So what we are trying at our forum, at Automobile Service Provider Academy, that local service providers, they should also be upgraded, they should be knowledgeable, they should be having a proper behavior with the customer. Because if you are seeing most of the service providers are they are from very low category. एक हथौड़ा ले लिया, एक अपना पाना ले लिया, गाड़ी का काम शुरू हो गया. But the customer who is buying a vehicle for 8 lakh, 9 lakh and above that 25 lakh rupees, he doesn't like, if he doesn't have a choice, he's going to those workshops. But if you provide a good service, yeah, immaterial, that it should go to the dealership, but it's not possible because I keep on visiting to many of my friends in Hyundai dealerships in Pune and Maruti dealers. They're crowded. In morning, if you go, I have seen the people, those who are working as a general manager, what they're doing. अरे ये गाड़ी आने दे, गाड़ी को अंदर ले, गाड़ी को बाहर ले. Nobody is taking care of what is happening, what is the quality. That could be their reason, that could be their problems. I don't want to get into that. But then where will customer go? If I have to spend for a service which is a periodical maintenance, if it takes 45 minutes or 60 minutes, which is claimed by company, I work for Toyota, I work for Hyundai, I work for Maruti Suzuki dealers, everybody has got a system. But I have seen, there is nothing against you people, but I'm just telling the fact. You take the vehicle, nobody is promoting the express service, although it has to be done within 60 minutes, because the change is not there. The people are not going to, because if I am an advisor, if I am taking a vehicle, I am not sure my car is going to get washed in a said time, or it is going to get repaired, because there are 3 people working in a chain. They are from different categories. This is, I have worked with the dealers, so I have seen this scenario. So service industry, as your question, it is little bit diverted from that, but service industry is going to be there. It is going to be, if we provide this type of services, we are not talking about the service which dealers are providing. The roadside, or we call it service providers. So what is happening in customers' mind nowadays? My new project which I have started, I have given a name of Auto Yoga. The reason behind that is, if you have a catch cold, do you go to the family doctor or do you go to the hospital? If you go to the hospital, you know what is going to happen. Just because of a catch cold, you may go for a MRI, CT scan and all this thing. You go to the your physician, who gives you in 300 rupees, 4 tablet देगा, आपको सही बना देगा, आप कभी पीछे देखोगे नहीं. That is the fear most of the customers are having. साहब मैं अगर वहाँ जाता हूँ, तो वहाँ इतना खर्चा मेरा बढ़ जाता है. The wheel element become compulsory, engine decap become compulsory, because there is a burden on dealer. There is a burden of EMI on dealer. There is a burden from company on the dealer. So people are diverting to the service providers also, which are not authorized. They should also be taken care by providing good amount of knowledge, good amount of knowledge and facilities, modern techniques and modern equipments, which we used to do in Kinetic. I have started my career with the Kinetic, and Kinetic Engineering is the only company which has started the local mechanic meet. When we launched Luna, when we launched Kinetic Honda, we used to give a training to the mechanics. Those later on became our salesmen. They used to tell the customer, yes, this is the good vehicle. That is the value of a service provider in the market. Coming back to the scenario that whether it is EV, whether it is hydro or whether it is mechanical, I don't think there is any drop or there will be any drop in this industry. The industry is going to grow because you are going to need a doctor. The same thing my Auto Yoga name, or if you look at my logo, I consider it as a human being. It's a yoga says सुबह उठ के आप प्राणायाम करो, अनुलोम विलोम करो, कपालभाति करो. Same thing, you have to warm up your car. Yeah? In the morning, you have to check the tire pressure. It is affecting on your average, and so on the things. Air filter needs to be clean. So even we educate these people, there will be a lot of things which can happen, and EV will have to train the local service providers also, which are there in the market, that how to tackle these vehicles. Because once you are sold, again the same thing is going to happen. They may not go to the distributorship, dealership, they will go to the service provider which are closer to them. So that is one of my requests. And another, as far as we are talking about the GST part and other things, we all are happy that the cost of new vehicle will come down. That you are going to pay for once. But what about the things you are going to use your vehicle for at least 15 years? You are going to pay more GST. 18% of GST you are paying on service charges, 28% of GST you are paying on spare part. So if that cost is not reduced, how do you think the things what government is trying to promote is pollution free, your vehicle should be maintenance free, it should use less fuel and all these things. So from this forum, I would like to request or pass on the message to the government, like think on reducing the GST taxes on spare parts, on service part also, because paying 18%, ultimately I am working in a workshop. People are not much interested in paying GST. If you bring it down to the 5%, definitely they will pay it. So from this forum, I would like to request or pass on the message to the government that reduce the GST on service repairs as well as the spare parts also. Thanks.
Thank you. Before concluding, just one question. All three, from the OEM side. Now, what I want to understand is there is a lot of debate which is going on with respect to E20 impacting mileage. One is that. Second, we have uniform CAFE norms for less than 3.5 ton vehicles. And that is something which may also define the product mix going forward. So, any views, thoughts on that, your perspectives would be very valuable for the, audience at large.
So as regard there's enough heat and noise generated on this ethanol. So the one thing is very clear, the fuel efficiency does go down. What is open to debate is what is the depreciation, or I would say the degradation of the vehicle, which obviously will be higher if it's Euro 2 vehicles. So to that extent, that's the reality. It's come to focus there. You have to live with it. I don't think there's a quick solution to it, but the more and all the vehicles of the last few years are running quick. Now your second part was related to
CAFE.
No, CAFE is like, there was a Hindi film song, Ek Paheli Hai Tu, Naag Naveli Hai Tu. CAFE, the way it is changing day in and day out, because it's coming, it's not coming, because so many things you're trying to do there. You are trying to look at emissions, which is at fuel efficiency, that's the basic part. But then you're also trying to give debit points or bonus points on engine technology, certain technologies. Now that will define the entire part of it. And then there is this big debate on small cars should be considered on the same level part of it. I think CAFE, the norms, I hope it shouldn't happen. The way we are moving to such a stricter norm, that this entry level two-wheeler, which is a big problem today and which is also flowing into passenger vehicle, shouldn't happen. I think we're taking too much of a big jump. And that is why for the last 5 months, it's going between industry, companies, industry association. CAFE norms have to be there, efficiency have to be there, emission has to be there. But there has to be a clarity, and one thing is a long-term policy. Whether you are having a GST policy, whether you are having a FAME policy, whether you are having a CAFE policy, there has to be some congruence in this thing. So CAFE clearly is the need of the hour, but how and then what are the results of the first two CAFEs? Nothing has been done. There was to be fines, there was to be credits. So you keep, it's like an exam, taking the marks come out. Nobody knows how much he scored.
Agree.
So before you move to Cafe 3, you should know what is the score on Cafe 1 and 2 on a formal basis.
Agree, and
But Cafe 3, everybody is waiting for bated breath, waiting for goddess as they would call it. Let's see how it unfolds.
But I tend to agree to one point that you made, that there has to be auto fuel policy. Post 2015 we don't have any, which will basically lay down the roadmap of how it is expected to shape up over the next decade or so. Yes.
So I think, it's a very, very important topic which is currently being discussed. And I remember, in fact, as early as 30th August, the auto industry, the OMCs, the all marketing companies, and the Apex testing body, which is ARAI, we had a press conference. In fact, I was part of that press conference, where we had, shared the overall journey of ethanol, which I think, just for the information of the people over here, that it's not a very, it's a journey which has come suddenly. The ethanol blending has been there since 2001. Yes, it started with 0%, then went to 5%, then 10%, then was 12%, then 15%, then 19%. And now, yes, last 2 years, from 1st April 2023, all the cars are material compliant, and 2025, they are all emission compliant. So, but what is the focus of the government? I think if we look at, there is a one single agenda of the government. Whether it is EV, whether it is PLI schemes, whether it is environment, the focus is to reduce the import bill and substitute it with products which can reduce the impact on our foreign earnings. And that is the single agenda which is leading government to start off with this ethanol, currently the 20% blending. And yes, even MOPNG, the Apex body, has already come up with a paper on 12th August where they mentioned categorically that the fuel efficiency will go down by 2 to 6% depending upon product to product, driving habits, so on and so forth. So that's one thing. But at the same time, we also know that ethanol as a property also is an environmental friendly property, because it is taking carbon. The sugarcane from which we are getting ethanol is basically also reducing the carbon in our atmosphere. So these are some of the benefits and also some of the challenges which we see. But the government has also clarified that till 2026 October, there won't be any further increase in the percentage of ethanol blending. So it means we are another year and a half there with E20, and how the next span of E27, which is being talked about, will be rolled out. Now that's one part. On the cafe part, yes, there has been a lot of dilly-dallying. We are almost at the end of 25. April 27, the cafe 3 norms have to stick in. And today I can understand not only ours, but I think every company's R&D is looking at a bated breath that what is going to be the final value as far as Cafe 3 is concerned. Because the product pipeline and the technology cannot be made overnight. There has to be a lot of cycles, there have to be a lot of studies, research, and not only by the OEM, but also the research bodies, the various OEMs, the vendor partners, the powertrain, the channel, the value chain, everybody has to come into licensing with that. Therefore, we are looking, and we have already requested a couple of times that the Cafe 3 norm should be finalized as soon as possible so that we get a very clear picture. Already there are a lot of uncertainties going forward. What will happen to hybrids? What will happen to CNG? What will happen to the petrol, diesel? So many things are happening. Therefore, this Cafe 3 uncertainty will add a further challenge to the development of the future automotive technology. But government, I must also compliment them, because they have in the last couple of years brought certain policies which have also augmented the ownership and penetration of the friendly fuels, so to say. Like in electrification, I think the automotive PLI scheme which came in 2022 with an outlay of 25,100 crore was a game changer. Many of the OEMs are part of that scheme. Subsequently, next year they came up with the battery PLI ACC scheme. So we are already seeing, I think recently Maruti has inaugurated their first plant, and that will also further lower the cost of the adoption as far as EVs are concerned. The recent FAME 3 or the PM e-drive scheme is called, is putting a lot of focus on charging infrastructure with an outlay of 18,000 crore. So close to 65,000 crore worth of money is at stake from the government also to support and augment the EV infrastructure and the EV ecosystem going forward. Now all this is ultimately the single aim to reduce our dependency on fossil fuel. And I think if that happens, definitely India not only will grow by leaps and bounds, but also will become self-reliant in terms of our own money and also the powertrain adoption, which anyway is going to be EV and maybe in future also hydrogen, because that's another step which the government is taking by the National Green Hydrogen Mission, for which I think lot of work and research is already started. So we are definitely looking at an inflection point in the industry in terms of powertrain, in terms of fuel choices, in terms of customer choices, and also in terms of adoption of small cars, big cars, SUVs, and also premiumization. And I would like to add 4 important factors which are going to define the future of the auto industry. The first factor would be sustainability, because today the goals for 2070 to be India's carbon neutral cannot be achieved unless until the entire automotive eco chain talks of sustainability. The second big factor would be affordability, because that is where we will see the growth which we saw in China. Similarly, India will also be growing to that kind of level. The third would be adoption of technology, and that technology is something which I think is now a hygiene. It's not a delight now, it's a hygiene. Today we are looking at connected cars, we are looking at safe cars, we are looking at over-the-air updates, we are looking at penetration of IoT not only in manufacturing but also in cars. So this will also define the way things are, taking shape. And then ultimately I think safety as one of the aspects in terms of various ratings will also be a very defining phenomena as far as the future of the automotive industry is concerned. So I think all OEMs, all value chains, all people would need to work together with this framework in mind so that we can make India a truly global manufacturing and production base as far as automotive.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. We'll now stop for a Q&A. We can take 2 to 3 questions. We have 5 minutes for the Q&A. So,
Sure.
any questions, you can just raise your hand and, our volunteer will come with you with the mic. Any questions? We've just discussed some amazing topics here. Okay, this one at the back.
Hello, good morning, and thank you for the chance to ask questions and everything. See, my basic question was, sir told us that aftermarket is pretty much important to the success of the passenger vehicles or any vehicles that are being sold into the market. We can take an example of the Maruti as well, where if we ask any mechanics what car you should buy, then they will say, yes, you can buy Maruti, you can buy Mahindra, or you can buy Hyundai, because they are very used to repair those vehicles. And if any other company is coming into the market, it will be pretty much hard for them. But nowadays, the technology which required for the repairment of the vehicles, like if you are owning vehicles after 2022 or after 2020, any vehicles require the steering calibration, and people are not aware about it. You require the DPF regenerations and everything. And what are the steps you guys are taking for the aftermarket to get training, to provide updations? Is there any plan for the market or not?
I think it's a very important question, and as an OEM, I'm sure everyone is already planning for the future. Now, traditionally speaking, the revenue model for an automotive dealer, and I think people from FADA is also here, was basically the aftermarket, the service operations. But when we are looking at the penetration of electric technologies, or we call them, future actually is called SDVs, or the software defined vehicles, what will be the revenue model which will be left? And that is where the OEMs are investing a lot of money. For example, in 2019, I remember Hyundai was the first company to launch BlueLink, which is the telematics platform. And today we are very happy to share that 25% of the cars which we retail are already fitted with the BlueLink or the telematics technology. But only this BlueLink is not going to be the defining space as far as the future of technology is concerned. In 2020, we launched another, technology, which was CTB, or the click to buy. Now, just to look at the last 5 years statistics, over the last 5 years, customers in India for Hyundai have already had 750,000 inquiries, 7.5 lakh inquiries on click to buy, which resulted into almost 1.5 lakh bookings on click to buy, which resulted in the actual retail sales around 2.5 lakh on click to buy with a finance penetration around 45 to 50,000 numbers. Now, what change it signifies? It signifies the changing mindset of the consumers and also signifies the changing volume and the revenue model as far as the dealers are concerned. So in future, rather than looking at an oil change, because an EV will definitely will not have an oil, we should be looking at subscription services. We should be looking at charging services. We should be looking at telematic services. We should be looking at preventive maintenance inquiry services. Now these are the services, once the adoption of these connected cars will become more and more, the dealers will actually start earning. For example, for us, the Blue Link is given free of cost for 3 years. After that, you have to buy a subscription package. Similarly, many of the companies are now giving OTAs, or over-the-air updates. Like in our cars, we are giving JioSaver as a bundled package. Once a customer becomes used to these OTT platforms, after 3 years, he has to buy a subscription package so that he can continue to use those kind of services. So what I want to say is that the future of service revenue and service models will be changing. And that's why OEMs right now are also putting lot of focus on training the manpower, whether it is in the manufacturing operations, whether it is in the vendor supply chain, or whether it is the dealerships. And you would see that now the dealership training programs are not highly technical, they are more in terms of software technology. Because currently all cars are driven by computers. You have the TCUs, or we have some kind of the electronic control units. All these things will make repair more easy, more simple, and that's where, but it will require a lot of technology. So every OEM is working towards creating a very strong and robust servicing platform so the cars of the future can be serviced anywhere in the world. I mean, in the sense that you could actually remotely diagnose your car and the service could be provided at the home of the customer. So yes, revenue is very important because it will not come from the sales, but it will come from the service and from these future subscription packages which are happening. But at the same time, technology and training of the manpower will be one of the key aspects in changing the mindset also of the operations as far as automotive industry is concerned. That's my take as far as the future service revenues and the models are there. Shashank sir, would you like to add something on this?
Okay, so thank you very much, and thank you for being a very good and patient audience. In case if there are any further questions, we are there around for some time, and we can catch up and discuss those. Thank you very much.